Hi everyone, I've got an interview today with Andrew Startups, and I just wanted to talk to you just briefly before we go into it. He's a really interesting guy. He has done a lot on early startups, which he talks a lot about, and he also talks about his marketing and his online course that he's just introducing now. So I hope everyone enjoys it. If you've got any questions, then let me know. Hopefully, I'll leave some details of his course and stuff on there as well. So if you do need to reach out to him, then do, and that would be fantastic. Thanks a lot, guys. Speak to you later. Bye. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Hayward. This is the Absolute Business Mindset Podcast. Today, I've got Andrew Lee Miller, who's also known as Andrew Startups, as you can see from the t-shirt. And we're going to talk about startups. We're going to talk about marketing, and we're going to go into some details about the different consultancy business and areas that he works in. So just to start straight away, Andrew, thank you for joining me here. And what I wanted to start was maybe a little bit left field about your degree and your education. You did a business admin with international focus. So what inspired you to do the business focus? A lot of people do the business admin but don't do the international side.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I started in college as a general business degree. You know, like in America, I think it's just the thing to do is to go to college. And actually, I'm fourth generation entrepreneur on both sides. I had a business in high school detailing automobiles for people. So I never really wanted to go to college, but you know, I think my family gave into the pressure and they were like, no, you're going to college. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll get a general business degree. And then when I was there, I started meeting international students and really realizing that I have talent and ability for language and a real love of culture. And then I started to realize that even though America might be a world power or was or whatever, there is no such thing as business if you are not in international business. So even as a small business, you're having a website now and you're selling overseas, you're promoting yourself, or you're getting blog visitors from overseas. So I was just, even back then thinking that international business is the way to go. So I switched that way. And, it's funny you ask about education because I don't really feel like I use much that I learned in college for my actual business. It's all startups. The education is working in tech and working with these companies over and over again in these stressful situations when they need to grow and they need to scale and they need to partner and they need to grow without spending money. We don't really look at education that much. Like it's a tick box. You want someone that has a degree, but even now, Google and Facebook both and Apple don't look at college degrees anymore as a necessity. But for me, I feel like I grew a lot as a person, and my mindset grew from just my small little business to like, oh, now I can have clients all over the world and travel and stuff.
So globalization obviously was a key factor in sort of your the way you saw the world, and that's actually still even now quite unusual for a lot of businesses in the US, because I would guess, because even in the UK, which is where I'm based, there's still a lot of national businesses which never looks towards the global side. Did you see for you that you wanted to work at that time like larger corporations? Because I would imagine with an international focus, you wouldn't necessarily go to startups. You'd probably go to big corporations. So what drove you to work with startups and the passion for startups which you have?
Yeah, I think one thing is the entrepreneurialism that's in my blood. But two, I think life is about testing and seeing what you respond best at. And for me, I think the goal for me in everything, personal life, professional life, is to just inject myself where I can create the most value. And when you're passionate about something, it's much easier to work hard and be better than anybody else at your skill. If you do what you love, for work, then you never really work a day. And I found out that I loved and was very talented at this early stage startup growth hacking. I do consult sometimes with corporations nowadays after 15 years of successes, but it's consulting from a startup point of view on how they can act more efficiently, how they can be more nimble, how they can do low budget marketing, how they can launch test projects as startups internally. So my whole world is all about startups, and there's a lot of people who have come after me saying the same thing, but I eat, breathe, and sleep early stage startups, which is the least financially successful that the company will ever be. So It's not a focus if you're only caring about the money. If you only care about the money, then you'll be a corporate consultant and you'll charge hundreds of thousands of dollars. But for me, it's the passion project around with the early stage. Like, so coming up with the initial branding, coming up, launching the initial marketing campaigns, testing channels, testing value propositions, testing different product market fits. A lot of people struggle in those stressful scenarios, and that's what I like. And so that's why I gravitate towards that.
And so you say that knowledge and sort of experience is key in this sort of area. So your first startup that you did was an online advertising in Mexico. So initially, so you had an entrepreneurial spirit and you wanted to leverage that. But why Mexico? Why initially Mexico?
To be honest, successful in life is leaving yourself open to amazing opportunities that might come in, and being fluid like water, as Bruce Lee would say. But an opportunity came to move to Mexico, not for the job. I had a startup of my own in college, and I had an opportunity to live in Mexico and continue my language practice. I was learning Spanish, which I'm now fluent in because of that decision. So the opportunity to move to Mexico and further continue my language courses, but through immersion, was there. And so I moved there, and then I found the tourism startup in Mexico. And that's when I really fell into marketing for startups. I had already done it for my own, but as an entrepreneur, it's different. When you're wholly focused on the growth and marketing, then like I said, you eat, sleep, and breathe those metrics and that one focus. And so I was there for a year, and I got that business to an ROI positive plateau where I was almost not necessary anymore. Like, so machines are running in the business to drive more business, and they've hit a point operationally that they're maxed out. So they don't want any more marketing. Yeah. And that doesn't work for a guy like me, like getting bored and paid for sitting at home. Yeah. Sounds like a dream to most people.
I totally understand. I can so totally empathise with you. I'm moving my roles, and I'm moving to a different company, and I've had to do a 3-month notice period, and so I'm now in the 3rd month. I start my new job at the end of May, and I must admit, like people were saying to me, "Oh, you're so lucky. You've got a couple of months where you're not doing very much. It must be so nice to relax."
Horrible.
I'm like, I really don't like it. I really don't like that.
A couple months. I mean, if you, do you need to be in the office, or they're like, go home?
Well, I've been able to be flexible and work from home, and to be honest, just the way things have happened, I've done a little bit to do with my podcast as well. So it wasn't necessarily. It was just more the fact of, like, I really didn't like the fact that there just wasn't enough to be getting on with. I like to be busy. I like to just have passion for what I do. So totally get that.
Go on a trip and work remotely. So now in my career, I work remotely 100%. Right. Sometimes I go and work in-house with clients if they really need it, or if we're doing a product launch, or they have big budgets, then I will come there, and I want to make sure that we're working together on product stuff all the time. But I work from about 6 to 8 countries a year, and I work remotely, and I feel a lot more businesses are becoming open to that because they're seeing the efficiency, not just on the cost saving sides for them, which I'm much more affordable than an in-house hire for marketing, because you don't have to worry about my commuter benefits or healthcare or whatever. But also I'm much more efficient on the work side. So you hire me, which I just signed a client 2 days ago, and we start on Monday. I've already been brought up to speed over the weekend. So this weekend I'm studying all their materials, looking over their campaigns, and we're starting on Monday with the kickoff call and starting executing right away. Whereas most people in-house are going to, first week, don't pressure yourself too much, relax a little bit, get to know the people on the team, go out for drinks. None of that here. So
and that is a defining difference between a corporation versus a startup. A startup is, from what I understand, is more like deliver on what you've promised, or what you need to your service or product that you in the corporate world. It's a bit slower. Let's say.
Absolutely. And when I consult for corporations like Match Group in the US, $12 billion company, they own Tinder, Plenty of Fish, OkCupid, Hinge. I consulted on the launch for 6 months of a new dating app and literally taught them how to move quick and be a startup and be okay breaking a few eggs to make an omelet. The most successful startups in the world are very reactionary, meaning they are focused on growth and reacting to anything that pops up, not preventing things from popping up.
Yeah.
Corporation, you're investing in legal and compliance and all these things because you're preventing things from popping up because people come after you because you have a lot of money. So you need to be preventative. Whereas when you're a startup, nobody really cares about what you're doing. And if you really make mistakes, the majority of the time, you're just going to get a cease and desist letter. So they're going to be like, please stop doing this using our logo in your advertising. And then you just stop and you're fine. And you go on, you go, okay. Well, so the best startups are reactionary and move fast and understand that if you wait for something to be 100% correct or right, you'll be waiting forever. So you just got to get it to not going to really get it to worthy of a test and then test it.
So something I've found over the last probably 3 or 4 years working for a big corporation is that there's a lot of sort of startup entrepreneurial buzzwords which suddenly have been thrown around, and equally there's a lot of talk in my current company, which I'm leaving soon, is that they want to have labs or sort of entrepreneurial teams which approach situations, clients in a complete, or sometimes internal as well. They approach those situations differently to a big corporation. Do you think with your consultancy hat on, do you think that's actually viable? Is it actually possible to have the sort of startup ethos within a big corporation?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the companies that I work with, they're shifting towards teams. So, I mean, and if they haven't gotten there, that's what I try to bring to the table. Basically, each team is so product, HR, advertising, whatever, those teams act like little startups in and of themselves. So 300, 500 or 1,000 person organization has teams of 10 to 5 to 50 people. And those teams act like startups, or we try to inject that ethos. And then on the other side, marketing teams that hire me. So like what I said, with companies that I hire, they normally have an incubator inside of the company, and that's like a 10 to 30 person organization that is a startup. They don't follow all the bureaucratic, slow moving red tape of the overall company. Their goal is to learn how to behave like a startup. And I do think they can be successful. I think that they're still not moving as fast as a young, hungry startup because they're still in that corporate office and with those catered lunches and those big, comfy couches. But I've seen some great things happen there, definitely. And that is really one of my biggest passions, is finding those opportunities to work with companies like that and bring that value to them.
I could definitely see in my company the value of what we tend to do now in our business is sometimes outsource. So as I say, like we would employ someone like you, your marketing company, and sort of
call me.
I'll keep your number on my phone, and if anything pops up, obviously I'll let you know.
That's what I love to do, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about your entrepreneurial spirit and your startup sort of mentality, but just what I think we have covered this, but I just wanted to sort of touch base about this early stage, because there's a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurial and they want to start their own business. Right. And that's because they have a true passion for their product or service. Right. It's unique to my sort of sphere, the people that I mix with, that there's someone that is a sort of serial startup expert, which it sounds like you are, and it sounds like you. So just give me a sort of an idea about this idea of this early stage startup rather than actually having your own startup. It sounds like you actually.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, technically my agency or my consulting firm is my startup, but the difference of being a startup marketing expert and focusing just on the marketing as a consultant is that I get to work on a ton of different projects from different industries that help different kinds of people. and that have different problems and different solutions and different channels and different types of marketing. Whereas a founder of one company, so if I'd stayed with the company I founded 13 years ago, I'd have been just helping college students for the last 13 years working on one project. So would that have been big and worth millions of dollars by now? Who knows? But I'm not really focused on just the money. I like working on different things, solving challenging problems for different companies, and basically helping people, because a lot of the projects I work in, they're to evolve industries and help people and create solutions for the end user. So I find that really fun and rewarding, and that's why I've been doing it for 12 years. And it took me about 10 years to start saying the word expert, and it still feels really unnatural when I say it. But like, if you say it and enough people say it, people hire me because they need an expert, then I have to live up to the part. And so the work is there. I've driven three companies from nothing to multi-million-dollar exits as full-time consultant, and I've launched maybe 36 apps and projects and websites and tech brands around the world, from Norway to Spain to Czech Republic, UAE, South Africa. I've helped companies in Hong Kong, Taipei, Taiwan, all over. So there's people doing these things all over, and they don't all have access to like the tried and true growth tactics and strategies that we develop in San Francisco.
Okay, just a sort of left field question, just to keep you on your toes. How many languages do you speak?
That is an awesome question. So fluently, obviously English, and then Spanish. I'm conversationally in Arabic from 5 years, based in the startup scene in Dubai. I speak pretty good Hindi, and then I can understand or say hello and how are you, and maybe 10 more random ones, like different African languages and stuff.
Wow, that's brilliant. I'm sinfully
travel long enough. Yeah.
And do you find do you learn? And one of the questions that often comes up in sort of things that I like talking about is about learning and how the different ways people learn. Sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's listening, sometimes it's immersion. How do you find the best way of learning a language?
Immersion, 100%, or dating someone, which is immersion, right? So you don't learn with your head, you learn with the heart, right? So if you can care about someone who only speaks that language, then you'll learn it much quicker.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's an interesting perspective on that. I wasn't expecting that answer. I thought you were gonna, because I suppose in a sense it is immersion, isn't it? And as you say, if you care about the language and care about people in that country, you'll do that. That's interesting. So just to flick back onto marketing. So you said you sort of built your knowledge working on startups and developing things for that. You don't have a qualification in marketing. You've built that all up from your skills, knowledge, experience, and things like that. What advice could you give an entrepreneur that's listening to this or watching this, and what advice could you give them on marketing? Very general question, I know, but just
very general question. I think the best advice is to start by consulting for free, or start for working for free. So if someone, I mean, like, marketing is such a general thing, and I don't even really consider myself a marketer. I'm more of a growth focused person. And the difference is marketing could be advertising or branding, or, you know, the things you do in print and other like old school traditional promotions for your business, events and whatever. And growth is all digital. Growth is more aggressive and focused on driving the business. Like, so I'm growth. Here's the 3 things that drive the business. So sales, email, and phone meetings for the sales team. I'm focused on growing those 3 numbers with whatever activities that I'm doing. So I think the first thing to do is to just find what you're passionate about through testing. So I think I'm passionate about shoes because I'm a little kid and I love my sneakers or whatever. Okay, so go find a shoe company and be like, I want to learn marketing. I'll do your marketing for free. I'm going to take some online courses like Andrew's course or whatever, which we'll talk about later. And I'm going to do marketing for you for free for 3 months. And if you like what I'm doing, maybe you can hire me. So like, by investing your time to learn, you're getting experience, and then that experience is then a tradable commodity for your CV. So I think the number one thing is to figure out what you like
Yeah.
and then do that all the time. So if you can figure out what you're really passionate about, whether it's marketing or traveling or writing or whatever it is, then you can do it really well eventually because you can put it in the time easily and get good at it. So for me, when I started out in marketing, I think it takes, like I said, being open to really any opportunity, like this opportunity in Mexico. And then it takes a little bit of luck, someone that believes in you before you have that experience. So I told that tourism company in Mexico that I was going to learn these things and do that. And I didn't work for free, but I worked for really, really cheap just because I knew I was going to be passionate about what they were doing. And I knew I was going to be able to invest that time to get good at what they needed done. And so they took a risk on me and they invested in me quite a bit. Like they bought me books, training, and gave me a budget for a while. And I put in more time than anybody at the company and quickly shot up the ranks. And we built the business very quickly because of that shared risk that we took together.
So one of the things that's just popped into my mind is the idea of we mentioned like you're not slightly uncomfortable with the word expert, but it's the 10,000 hours, isn't it? You've got to be able to do your 10,000 hours to be able to be good at something. There's like a lot of people, especially younger people who want to be an entrepreneurs, are fleeting between an idea for a couple of months and something tails off and they try something else and they try something else. And I actually think that's a valued process for school leavers or college leavers or degree leavers. But I do think you to be considered an expert, as I would say you are an expert. It's mainly, I think you need to put the effort in, you have to put the time in, you have to put the dedication in, and there are no shortcuts to these situations. You have to put in the hours to be successful.
Years.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So you said 12 years, isn't it?
Yeah. And countless projects, and with each project you learn. This is something we say in startups: there's no such thing as failure, there's only winning and learning. And the more times you do, you either win or learn and what not to do. And so the more times you do, you get closer and closer to winning because you're like, don't do this, don't do that, do this. And after 12 years, literally one of the biggest value that I add to new companies is you haven't made these mistakes yet. I have. So let me work with you so that you don't make these mistakes. I can save you the hassle from making those mistakes. So I definitely agree. It's a lot of time investment.
And do you believe, I believe is maybe the wrong word, but do you believe in sort of personal development, self-development as a human? Because it sounds like you've immersed yourself in countries, you've immersed yourself in marketing, but do you I just wonder, like, do you think it's critical to specify very quickly, or do you think you should remain a sort of generalist that is flexible in the business market space?
Interesting point, or interesting question. I think if you're a job seeker and you're at the early stage of your career, you should stay generalized. But as you get more and more experience and you remain passionate about this one thing, then you should specialize. So it's, if you try to market to everyone, you market to no one. Yeah. So you definitely want to know who your target is. But if you're still at that testing phase in your career where you want to try new things, then you should stay generalized, I think, definitely.
Yeah. So just on that, so I believe the skill set which takes you in business is in a way to remain a generalist, because you need to be able to turn your hand to marketing, to sales, to research and development, or whatever that is. Because for me, in my corporate world, I need to be a jack of all trades. I need to know a little bit of everything. You as a consultant, you're marketing yourself on your specialism, on your knowledge and your experience that you can bring to the party. From a very selfish point of view, so would you say in a corporation, so you've worked in corporations or been involved in corporations, should you specialize in a big corporation as well? Just sort of sounding you off on that.
Yeah. Again, it depends on how far away you are, or how far along you are in your career. If you're if you're specialized at an early stage, that's fine. But if you want to grow in a corporation, you need to have like managerial experience, and you need to be more of a generalist if you want to make it to those director and C-level roles, which I never want to do. I mean, director obviously is a marketing director for maybe 3 to 4 different companies in my career. I had staff underneath me and set the marketing strategy and managed with their time and optimized what the team as a whole is doing. And you're not going to get to that level if you're just specialized. So for me now as a consultant, I try to be a jack of all trades, but specialized on the target that I'm focusing on. So marketing wise, I'm fluent in every marketing channel. I optimize search and content and social and many different channels for clients that I work with, usually all at the same time. So I don't try to just do one thing for a client. So if someone comes to me, Andrew, we want you to manage our Facebook ads, and that's it, I'm not interested. I want to only work with a small subset of clients that I do everything for. So the one-stop marketing shop.
That's really interesting because for this podcast, I'm trying different techniques on marketing, and we touched before we came online that there's opportunities there, and as a one-man band, it's just me doing this. I'm sort of testing, experimenting with Instagram adverts, with Facebook, responding to groups in Facebook, social media advertising. And I must admit, it's a really interesting point you make, because for me, I only have so many hours in the day after a full-time job as well. So I have to experiment in my marketing campaigns or marketings of the podcast. But you said you in your sort of immersiveness of the way you learn and teach and develop people, you would say if you took over my sort of podcast idea and you were like, well, I would do Facebook, I would do Instagram, I would do Twitter, I would do LinkedIn, I would do email advertising, I would do banner advertising. Would you just sort of get me up to speed and say, actually, to be successful, you need to cover all these bases rather than what you're doing, which is just test, tweak, change, test, tweak, change?
Yeah, I think that a good marketing strategy has 3 main components. The first component is the strategies that I know will work based on 12 years of experience. So for paid content marketing, I know that there's these and these strategies that'll work for developing or building your user base. Then the second part is the strategies that you have already tested that are your data shows that are working. So I take those over with a full-time focus and scale those strategies up. And then the third part are the industry specific things that after I do research, I find are really valuable. For instance, like Spreaker is a podcast community. So I wouldn't know about that beforehand, but maybe we're going to do a test on Spreaker.com and see if that's a really good, valuable user acquisition channel. So knowing those 3 things, I basically create a menu, or these are all the total marketing and growth ideas for Mark's podcast. And we work together to develop a strategy. So like usually in 3-month increments based on budgetary constraints, product constraints, operational constraints. So we don't want to grow too much because we're not ready, because we don't have 20 podcasts lined up in the product. So let's just try these lower budget, smaller, lower hanging fruit options, and we'll get to that paid advertising later on. So that's kind of how I approach it, but it all starts with research and working with the team and the client to go over what their goals are and what their constraints are and develop that strategy. And it also starts with looking at the product on developing from a marketing point of view. Like, is Mark mentioning at the beginning, at the end, to tell people to follow him? Is he making sure that people that he's interviewing are sharing the product or the podcast? So optimizing the product first for marketing is usually for marketing opportunities is where we start, and then we start testing and launching those new campaigns after that.
Awesome. So so tell me, so we've talked quite a lot about marketing and consultancy and where your expert lies. So your company, Andrew Startups, as we can see on your T-shirt, what is it? What's your, if you were trying to sell to me what Andrew Startups does, what would you say?
Sure. So it's a one-man show. It's a startup consulting agency, but it's really just me. So when I became a consultant, I branded myself as Andrew Startups because when like everyone in my network is like, whenever I think of startups, I think of you. And I was like, let me see if Andrew Startups is available. And as a search engine optimization expert and someone who's done multi-million-dollar search campaigns for businesses, 10 different countries, I realized that if I can get my name and what I'm passionate about as a URL, then it'll be really easy for people to find me, even on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook.com. My email address, you can guess it. So it's for owning that search engine results page for anything. So if you search Andrew and startups, you're only going to see me, especially if it's one word.
Right.
But what it is I realized that instead of working full time for long term for 3 to 5 years per project, I can consult for 3 to 6 months per project, usually one project at a time, and I'm consulting for a pretty high rate, but I'm able to do everything for that company and really help them achieve massive growth in the first 6 months of their marketing, because I move faster and independently than anyone that they could find. And then they can take that time savings and invest that into building their actual internal team. And I help with that also. So helping them create the job listings for marketing directors, set the goals for what they need that person to have, and then even interviewing those people and then getting them on board and handing everything off in those 6 months. So that's kind of what Andrew Startups does. So let's say this podcast took off for you. Hope so. And all of a sudden you turn it into $1 million merchandising business, and you're getting, sponsorships like Joe Rogan's podcast, where he's getting, $600,000 amino acid protein bars and whatever. You now have a marketing budget, and instead of testing things yourself in your spare time, you bring me on board and I write a strategy and I implement those things according to that strategy. And at the end of that 6 months, we know these 5 channels are what are working. This is the ROI. This is the LTV of a new listener. This is how we're acquiring them. We have B2B stuff going as well that's acquiring new brands into the sales team. And you have a marketer in place that I've hired and trained, and they're maybe more cost effective than me, but they would never have been able to build out those strategies on their own. So I help people like get a more junior marketer and then train them with all the experience that I have to then execute after I leave. So I pay for myself over time for companies for the long run, and they get access to someone that they wouldn't be able to get because I'm not joining a lot of, I wouldn't be open to joining a lot of these projects otherwise. So they get access to me for a much more affordable rate. And so that's what Andrew Startups is. That's the whole pitch.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So leading on from that, you've got an online course which you're starting, Bootstrapped. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. So 3 years of consulting. I've had a lot of success. Some companies have raised millions of dollars off my campaigns. Companies have had app launches where they've got 50,000 downloads with no spend in the first month. And what that means is I'm able to charge more and more as a consultant because I'm creating millions of dollars worth of revenue for these companies. So charging $10,000, $15,000 a month isn't crazy for these businesses. But for early stage startups, like at the phase that you're at now, you're still in product development, you need to grow, you don't have a huge marketing budget. I used to always have to be like, no, politely decline. You're not at the stage where I'm ready to help you. So I was saying no to about 95% of the inbound traffic I was getting. And last year when I was working on developing a new app or releasing and launching a new app for Tinder and Match Group in LA, I was making a ton of money and I wanted to invest in helping those companies that can't afford to hire me as a consultant. So I spent 6 months developing an online course, which I don't like the term online course, but let's say online class, online program, whatever it is. It's 45 HD videos and a 60-page interactive workbook that has templates, cheat sheets, strategies, tool recommendations, examples from my career that teach these early stage entrepreneurs how to do influencer marketing, how to do search engine optimization for their website, how to do PR for their own business without hiring an agency, how to do content marketing and build a blog, how to do email marketing and write B2B emails that will convert. And the list goes on. It's about 10 different channels that I teach them how to hack without any additional spend. So viral online sweeps, how to do giveaways that get tens of thousands of entrants without any spend. So that course starts at $997 and they get access to like 75% of the videos. Then it goes up to $1,500 and they get all of the videos, all learn on your own. And then at the highest end, it's the signature package is $2,500. And I actually audit that client's business, that student's business. I give them a strategy, just like I was talking about, like I do for real clients. I sit with them for 2 hours. So 1 hour at the beginning, of course, 1 hour at the end of the course to go over their marketing, give them suggestions on what to focus on in the course in the beginning, and at the end, what to focus on afterwards. Sometimes we review the campaigns that they've created and the marketing that they've started. And the return on investment is huge. I've gotten about 15 students through this year. The program takes a couple months to watch all the videos and implement everything. They have unlimited access for life, and they can share it with anyone on their team. So it's not like one license per employee. I do monthly payments for people. I give discounts for found area. You know, I'm in South Africa right now. I give 25% off to founders in South Africa because the currency is a little bit, you know, deflated here. And so the goal is to be able to help people around the world build their businesses. And be able to give them access to these things that these strategies that I've developed in San Francisco and in Silicon Valley, working at the cutting edge of technology and the cutting edge of marketing and growth hacking, stuff that they're never going to learn anywhere else. So another thing is, if they don't even have the budget to get on that program, I also offer by the hour consulting, which is what I think we're going to do. I'm going to offer to you after this. Like, you might be a little bit early for the course. You need to get some more episodes, get up to 10 episodes and then really start blasting it out there once the product is ready. But we could spend an hour a month going over the marketing and what you're doing and giving you really good ideas and strategies and tests to focus on. So people like that own nurseries, insurance companies, all kinds of non-startup businesses book hours with me, like set hours, 5 hours a month to just chat with their marketing team and continue to push them to be more aggressive and more fast and more nimble and more startup focused.
And this is all digital stuff. You don't do more tradition. You don't do the traditional side.
No, I think that for an early stage business, you should never be focusing on anything that isn't offline. Even if you're an offline restaurant or whatever, you should be focusing on all digital in the beginning because the ROI is so present. It's trackable, it's quantitative. You can actually see what's happening, and you should get to outdoor advertising or radio or anything like that when you're a later stage business.
And equally on that, so you said about the return on investment is better for sort of social media or online advertising and marketing. What is the best advertising or marketing platform in the social media
for social media
now?
Well, Facebook is the biggest online advertising tool in the world. I'd say 84% of every dollar, 84 cents out of every dollar spent on digital advertising right now is in the Facebook ecosystem. So Instagram, Facebook, or WhatsApp, or maybe other smaller brands that they own. But there is no one awesome tool across the board, right? It depends on your target demographic, your budget, and your product, right? So if whatever you're trying to sell, who you're trying to sell it to, and how much you can spend to sell it is basically how I approach developing that, what strategies and channels we want to test. But then beyond that, it's a test. And no matter what, after 12 years, I'm still surprised like 25% of the time, which channels work best for which companies.
It's interesting because, so as I said, I've done a little bit of Instagram advertising or promotions, and they give you some demographics, some details very quickly of the people that are actually clicking on your your promotion. So they gave me basically it was between 21 and 30 or 18 and 31, something. That was my demographic. Now, what do I do that apart from knowing that most of the people that are going to listen to my podcast are probably graduates, probably early in a corporation, early in a business or a startup? What do I
I've got that information. That's great. Now, what do I do with it? This is what I think
Yeah.
we often, which hopefully you can sort of add value, is that we get this data, and a lot of the stuff that people sort of provide you is, oh, I can do this dashboard for you, I can show you this, I can show you that. But actually, what you really need is the insight behind that demographic data.
Right.
So what would you say,
Yeah.
21 to 31 or whatever that demographic is? So what would I do with that information?
Right. So what you would do with that is you would basically scale up with paid advertising, that the focus on that demographic. So if you see the best engagement is 21 to 30, then you know that when you have a budget to do paid ad, and that's through your organic promotions, I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
You basically know to cater your advertising to that when you're spending money. So you've spent time driving organic traffic. You're seeing that the best engagement's coming from that target. Then when you are doing inorganic or paid advertising, you want to focus on that target. So that's the data that I'm using to inform the decisions I'm making as a paid user acquisition expert.
Okay, awesome. So what's the next project? It sounds like you've got plenty going on as a consultancy business, online programs, let's call it. What's the have you got the next big thing?
Yeah, so the main focus right now is trying to help as many startups as possible, which I've never focused on before. Like last year, I was only able to consult with 4 clients all year because of my rate, because of where they need to be in their business, the budgets they need to have. So this year, I'm trying to help as many people as possible with the hourly consulting. So anybody, even at the idea stage that's listening to this, that wants to book an hour with an expert, Mark will share the links. You can book an hour time with me. We can talk about your idea, your market, your product, the solution that you're creating. And then if they are already at a stage where they need to grow the business, the course is a great option for them. So I'm chatting with people, offering 20-minute free chat with people to see if they want to book or to enroll in the course, in the program. And then beyond that, I'm doing free online webinars on Instagram, teaching people how to do growth hacking there. And yes, I'm just trying to help as many people as possible this year.
Yeah, and do obviously drop me the links and things like that, and I'll put it in the show notes, and we can talk about that, just so everyone, if they do want to book some time with you or get on your course, then obviously they can do that there. So I'm gonna jump around a little bit because so we spoke earlier about your 3 successful multi-million-dollar startup exits that you. I just want to slightly touch base on that and sort of understand the scale, because I think this is one of the things, if there's people in here that have actually got businesses, and the biggest challenge is, as a one-man band you can do so much, but actually to get to have employees or actually scale to a larger size, how would you suggest, for if anyone's listening that's in that position, how to scale up a business fast?
Well, it should never be, I mean, the goal should be to help people and create value. And if your startup or your business is doing that at scale, then you need to grow. But you never just want to grow for no reason. It should be based on the data. And so if the business is growing and you're providing a solution that people like, and the product is working and the marketing is working, then it's time to grow. And the first thing to do is make sure that the marketing will sustain that, and that it's at a ROI positive result. So I'm spending $10, I'm getting 15 or whatever it is. And then, make sure that you have those growth plans in place. But I think a lot of the areas where companies run into problems, if they are growing super fast, is on the team and culture fits. Yeah. So hiring internally can take lots of time. And that's why I think consultants are such a good idea. So if you have a startup and you're listening to this and you're already growing a lot, you should work with the growth agency, because taking time to hire someone internally can slow down those growth plans and can cause a lot of growing pains internally if you're a small team and someone doesn't like each other and then someone leaves, and it's a costly mistake to make. So that's one thing. But beyond that, it's really all about making sure that you have enough funding and that you have the right founder in place that can weather that storm, because it's stressful to grow quickly. It's long hours to make sure that you're taking care of those users, and you need to be focused on the right thing. And if it's a first-time founder and they've been in the trenches for years, not making any money, and they get to a point where they start to grow and be successful. A lot of times they start spending money and getting really overexcited and relaxing, going on vacation after 3 years of no vacation. And so that is a red flag. And so you need to make sure that you're working with a founder that is still going to see the course and put in the time to get to where they need to get. For me, I drove 3 quick exits in 6 years, all 3 exits as a head of marketing. So I was the first marketing hire at these companies, wasn't a co-founder. They had already worked on developing the product, been in that stressful, we have no idea if we're ever going to make money situation. They start to make a little bit of money, then they hire me and I scale it way up, and we exit the company within a year of me joining at each company pretty much. So I love those stressful situations, but then again, I also know that I can handle the marketing part. I'm not going to be in the funding situations and the hiring of HR and operations people. So anything related to marketing and growth, I love it. I'm passionate about it. I can put in 24 hours in a day into doing it, sleep maybe 30 minutes or something. No, I'm kidding. But the other things, you need somebody else to handle that. That's smarter than you.
So funding wise, so obviously at that time the companies you work for are looking for seed funding, whether venture capital funding. This might not be your complete area of expertise, but what advice have you seen for people to get funding? Because a lot of people now see I'll give up 5% of my business to get something, or get an extra injection of money. And I also think that organic growth is actually very, very good as well. But if people were looking for funding, what advice would you give them on how to attain that, and maybe not give up too much of your equity in your business?
Yeah, I think the first depends on what stage you're at. So if you're at the idea stage, you go and you look for an incubator. There's idea incubators that will take your idea. They believe in you as a person, as a business person and a founder. They'll invest $20,000 to $50,000 on your idea, you basically, they give you that money to develop your minimally viable product, your MVP. And then after that stage, you would go and you'd launch and you'd get some initial traffic, and then you would raise a seed round, which a seed round, or angel investors, or maybe that incubator wants to then reinvest with more money now that you've made it past that idea stage to the MVP stage and you've got some good data. At that stage, you give up a little bit more for a lot more money, like usually $200,000 to $500,000, or $100,000 to $500,000. And at that stage, they usually hire a marketing agency like because it's not enough money to do a long-term hire as a marketing director. You can get an intern and that's about it, but they're not going to know how to do anything. So they reach out to an agency like mine. We then scale the growth way up, and then they go and raise, if we're all successful and the product works, I know I'll be successful because I've been doing it for so long. I know it will hit, but we need some marketing budgets for those targets. And that's the sweet spot. That's usually where I hit. And then we hit the numbers that they need, and they go and raise $5 to $20 million after that. And that's when they build out an entire team. And they just go to the $1 billion valuation after that. So I've worked with lots of companies in that area. The way to go about fundraising is to figure out the VCs or the venture capitalists that are interested in things that you're doing. So your industry, where you're headquartered. So if you're a Danish startup in Copenhagen, then go look for VCs there, because they're looking for projects based there. You have way less competition than looking in San Francisco. The reason why so many people move to Silicon Valley after their business takes off is because the VCs are a lot more than money there. The VCs there have tons of connections because they've been in the industry where people are driving the industry forwards, and they have all the connections to the people who with the best talent and the best access to technology in the world. And so you get a VC in San Francisco, not just for the money, but because they've won many times before, like myself. I've been through this countless times. So getting me involved in your business as a consultant is more than just marketing. It's my experience and my expertise. And that's the same with venture capital. So if you go out and you look for investment, you might want to look over someone who only has money if they don't have the experience in the industry. I've definitely worked in projects where the lead investor was from like the construction industry and the projects in travel, and they're not able to add any value, yet they invested. And so you have to have them in core meetings, and they actually drive you in the wrong direction. I had a client in Czech Republic that was invested from a billionaire landowner in Germany, and he was in meetings and making bad design suggestions and things like that, and it eventually killed the project because the founders and the investors were all people that should not have been in on these key meetings.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I believe, and I talk about that business is often a people business, and a lot of the stuff that I do is about building relationships, building rapport with people, making sure that they're getting some value, that I'm getting value or equally. So all these people that you work with, like early stages, and maybe in your consultancy business as well, do you actually have to like the people you work with? It sounds a weird question, but I just wonder, like, if you have to go and work for a startup, you've got to have rapport with those people, haven't you?
So two things. So I think it's more important to be passionate about the project and the people you're working with at a startup. But if you are in-house and you are the first marketing hire at a 10-person company or 5-person company, you better get along with those people, because you're going to be working endlessly, and you need to there's a lot of data out there that emotional intelligence is more important than IQ in a work environment, because you need to be able to maintain those relationships and rely on people for different projects. So part of what I do as a consultant for these big corporations is work cross-departmentally with a lot of different people in the corporation, from HR to product to marketing to engineering and tech and all kinds of different things. And so you do, I feel like in general, you want to be a likable person and you need to get along. But as a consultant, it's less important that you really love the people and more important that you love the project and that you're able to put the hours in.
Okay.
But full time, you better get along with them.
You better get on with them. Yeah, exactly. And so we touched on it earlier. So it's your businesses are just a one-man band. It's just you. You don't employ VAs, or you don't employ admin assistants, or anyone.
No, I am. I had an assistant for half of this year. It depends. I go on a project basis. So if I take on a really big client that's going to take up all my time, then I'm going to need an assistant to do my social media and answer my emails and take inbound leads for other work and for discussing the course with people and stuff. So right now I'm a one-man show, but I definitely lean on other experts around the world for campaigns that I'm not an expert in. So I consider myself a jack of all trades, but I'm definitely more focused on the B2C projects and a lot of search and paid user acquisition and influencer marketing and content. And then for other things like email lead gen and SaaS campaigns, when clients in the B2B space come in, I lean on other experts. If it's a larger content project that I don't have the time for, I lean on a content marketing and content creation expert that I work with. So I have experts that I work with around the world. And actually I'm launching, I'll just say it here, I'm launching my own agency. So Andrew Startups is more about my personal brand and just me. But to be able to really work with the big boys and the big startups that are really scaling up, I have to employ these other experts as well. And so I have growthexperts.com with a Z. So I'll be launching that later this year, where we'll be a full-fledged digital agency, but all experts, no outsourcing, all in-house. We work with the team. And so I'm a one-man show right now because I'm only working on one project at a time. Right now I'm working with a startup called Matt's Flights. They're a flight deal aggregator. And I'm doing all their paid advertising and their search and their giveaway promotions. I have a couple other smaller clients. And then the main goal for me is trying to promote the course to the startup founders that don't have access to the budgets to hire me as a consultant. So that's my number one thing right now.
Awesome. So let's wrap this up. You've been really fascinating insight into marketing and global moving and lots of different areas that we've covered here. Where can people find you, Andrew?
So I'm online everywhere at Andrew Startups. So twitter.com/Andrew Startups, Instagram.com /Andrew Startups. andrewstartups.com. You can email me at hello@andrewstartups.com. The number one thing I want to tell people about is the course. I feel like if your audience is more centered around people at the idea stage or the early stage, they probably haven't raised money yet for their business, or they don't have a huge marketing budget. So that's great for booking hours with me. So if you are running any campaigns, or you want to see if your business could benefit from running any paid campaigns, or you want me to help set up, I'm setting up paid advertising for an auto body shop in Thailand this weekend. 3 hours of work for me, just 3 hours of work for me versus weeks for them trying to figure this stuff out. So I do help smaller businesses that aren't even startups. So if you're not a startup and you're just an entrepreneur, you can book an hour with me at andrewstartups.as.me, or just go to my Instagram and click book, or go to my website and click book as well. But yeah, so that's the lowest level. Then the course is available on the website or on my social media as well. And if you are at a stage where your product is ready and you need to grow your business, but you don't have money to spend on growing the business, this is everything else but paid ads. This will teach you how to do everything else but paid ads. So you can build that traction to then having money to go spend on the paid advertising afterwards, which no marketing agency tells you that you can do yourself. You can do yourself. I will teach you how. And all you have to do is enroll in that course.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much for your time. It sounds like you're an incredibly busy person, so thank you for finding the time to come on my podcast. That's fantastic. Well, let's leave it there, and let's catch up soon.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Mark.
Cheers. Bye.